Welcome back
to another episode of Living Well Together, Big Life in a Small Town. Or as Terry likes to say, a tiny town.
Tiny Town, USA.
Tiny Town, USA.
Yeah.
We are here, just him and I today, obviously.
A dynamic duo.
And are you
Look at
having
this,
trouble?
I lost the temple pieces came off of my glasses.
You know, I think we talked about what he's famous for, whistling and his hair, but he's also famous for these little glasses. What are they called again? They love your little glasses. They're
Thin optics.
Thin optics. And what's
And
the
they
deal
just
with
fit
them?
on it's just a magnifier. They're just readers. It's
Right, they're just
special.
but they just sit,
They
on,
just
your
sit
nose.
on your nose,
And
like
if you break them,
Benjamin
don't you
Franklin.
get free?
Yeah,
free?
that's
Not
maybe.
really.
I don't know. I don't know.
Someday maybe they'll want to be a sponsor with us.
Well, that's just it. I've probably been through 8 pairs
That's-
at least.
yeah.
And
They last a long time, but then all of a sudden you'll like break a couple pairs at a time. So you have some
I don't know.
backups.
And depending on what you're doing, they can fall off and say, the commode.
Why in the world would you need to have them on in the bathroom?
Why do I need to have them on anytime?
To read?
You see what you're doing. To see what you're doing. Yeah.
There's some
Anyway,
things I don't know that I need to know.
time going by like it always will. Your eyes need a little, and I mean, they kind of fit like on the back of my.
This is very cool.
My,
Yeah.
phone.
So they
There's a little
go
case,
with
and
you
that way you
wherever
got
you
your
are.
phone, and then if you need to read things, you just pull them off and put them on,
Isn't it?
and here we are.
It's cool, babe.
Put that on silent.
Yeah. Is it
Here
on
we
silent?
go. Yeah. So our guest tonight is had to
Us.
shuffle. Right. Well, we shuffled the deck a little bit.
Yeah.
And so again, we're just flexing. Flexing with the times. It's Tuesday
we are
night.
Good pivoters.
This
Yes.
is the night also of the presidential debate is
Yes,
happening this evening. So I'm
we
not sure when
are.
you're going to hear this or when it's going to hit the skids.
Way
but
after.
Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
looking forward to going to bed early and have the TV unplugged.
Okay.
Wahoo.
So what we were thinking about talking about today is how the podcast has affected us personally.
Well,
like
because
how
some
it's
people are
influenced
probably
us.
thinking, gosh, we should do a podcast. Some people are,
Yeah.
inspired by the fact that anybody can do a podcast. You can do it with your cell phone. You can
right.
do it with, we have some equipment that's a little nicer than your cellular phone, but the reality is if there's a message you want out, a podcast is an easy enough way to do it.
It really is, yeah.
And you can start from, wherever you're at and work your way into it. But we are a little intimidated by the process. In the
Completely
beginning.
intimidated by the process because we've been talking about doing this for several years. And then our business coaches were like, it's a good idea.
Well, part of it is too just the commitment. Like if you're going to do it, you got to do it. And we
Right.
knew in the front end that the average podcast
Doesn't make it till 8 episodes.
fizzles out after like 7 or 8 episodes.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and recorded 10 of them before we even released one of them,
Exactly. And
just to beat the curve.
for sure. And thankfully, Graham was on board with.
Right. Timing wise, it's worked out for Graham to be our producer, and he's learned along the way. He's a huge podcast fan.
He
a
is.
listener,
He
an
knows
observer
what a
of.
good podcast looks
So he
like.
knows what lighting should be and angles should be and volume and sound and vibrational frequency and all the things because he kind of nerds out on that, and we're really glad because it
We are glad.
makes our life easier. We were just talking about that. If we had to do this without, we would not do it.
No.
It would be like complete hillbilly production.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we're very grateful. But the way, how has the podcast influenced you personally? Do you feel like it has? I mean,
Well, the idea has been networking, right? Our commitment in the beginning was we want to get into our town and bring the people that are in our town out.
Yes, let's
and highlight their
showcase.
business
Yeah.
and showcase what they do and connect people. Really, it's been our desire is just to connect because let's face it, we can, yeah,
I love it.
whatever,
Circles.
you weirdo.
But we've seen a lot of circles overlapping, and I think that's the coolest thing ever.
It's super fun. And so probably more you than me as
Well-
far as what's the impact been for you as far as connecting.
Oh, for sure. Because just this past weekend, we were at the Stetsons and Sterling's fundraising events that we talked about with Stephanie Llacuna.
We had Stephanie Llacuna on, and she's the executive director at the Therapeutic Writing Institute.
Exactly.
Here in the Miami Valley, and doing magic work with disabled kids and veterans and people with
Yeah.
disabilities.
Oh my gosh, it was very powerful.
And so they had their fundraiser, and
Yes.
we were connected to that
Right.
process by way of Steph.
by way of Steph, but finding out about it because of her being on the podcast, because
Right.
she talked about it then.
100%.
And so we had Grace and Graham there along with two of your staff, Mady and Rianna and their guys.
Their fellows.
And then also
Brenda.
another podcast guest, Brenda Smith from the Quirky
Another
Bird.
entrepreneur here in our town.
So that was another overlapping circle for me. But it was kind of heartwarming to
it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fun to be a
be
part
there
of it.
and be a part of it.
And sponsor and know that you're supporting,
Something
good things.
so-
Your money is going for good things.
So good. Yes. And it was, they had a lot of really cool things. Like it's one of the best fundraising events I've ever been
The
to.
auctioneer, they had both a silent and a live auction, and the auctioneer was hilarious.
He was hilarious. Yeah.
And they raised a lot of money. And Steph said, but I don't
Did
remember
she
the number.
say? Oh, dang. I don't remember.
It was,
Did she announce it afterwards? Do you want me to look it up?
I don't know. It was multiple thousands of dollars. It might have been 100,000.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus the silent auction stuff. So yeah, they had some very generous people there.
Yeah.
And we were happy to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And then that was Saturday night. And
Right.
then on Friday night, I was a part of the Beauty Boost Glam+Glow event.
Sunday night.
Sunday night. Oh, yeah, Sunday night.
Sunday night.
At Bock Family Brewing in
Right.
Dayton. And Jessica Ellington, who was also a podcast guest, was the one in charge.
Beauty
She's
Boost
the Beauty Boost Dayton
boss.
girl. Yeah.
Right.
And, when she was on, her story was so inspiring to me.
Right.
And the mission of helping empower women.
Right. Girl power.
Yes. To be healthy and beautiful. I mean, I'm just like, I was.
How many vendors were there? 30? 20?
I think about 25. I think
Okay.
right in between. If I was going to kind of guess,
Yep.
I had my, I was kind of facing towards the guest in my
So you had
chair,
your
so-
own vending
I
experience.
did my very first vendor experience, and it was. I had a lot of butterflies going into it. I was so grateful for you. It reminded me of our catering days back in Davenport, Iowa.
Yes. Oh well, we used to have a catering business
We
when I was
did.
in chiropractic school.
Yep, with the
And you guys
Goodmans.
did some baller stuff.
We
You
did.
and
Our
Brenda.
largest event was 475 people. But you did all the lugging and loading. Like I would do the cooking, but you got in there and you always,
Well,
it's like you
the
could read my
scene-
mind. It
the
was,
scene's got to be set, and tables
Yeah.
got to go up, and things got to be done, and lighting needs to be on, and
Yeah.
sound needs to be happening. So yeah,
so
that's-
he's really, really good at that.
it was like
among
the old
all
days
of his
for a
others.
minute.
It was.
Schlepping, schlepping, sweating.
So that was really fun. But also another overlap was because Chelsea Mozel, who was also a podcast guest,
Right.
before going into the event, she set up all of the foundational things for when you do an event. You need to have your mailing list set up, and you need to have a landing page where people can sign up for the big Living Well Beauty Basket drawing.
Right.
And it takes a lot of time, especially when it's just something that you might do once every couple of years.
So you had Chelsea do a VIP day for
She
you,
did, and yes, she had.
and just knock out a bunch of behind the scenes.
You guys, if you need somebody to help you with your business behind the scenes like this, it was so valuable to me. And I loved it so much, and we accomplished so much that I need her again, and so we're doing it again tomorrow.
And you
she's
had,
gonna-
oh, are you really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
And there was Alyssa. Alyssa did some behind
And
the
then
scenes.
Alyssa Carpenter. Now, she hasn't been on the podcast yet. She doesn't live in the
We
state.
have had a lot of female
but she is from Fairborn.
entrepreneurs, which again, I'm
know.
kind of blown away by. You guys are knocking it out.
Love it.
Yeah.
And I love that they love being on and talking about the things that they're passionate about
Mm-hmm.
and what kind of drives them. It is just inspirational.
Danielle
I
was
love
there
that.
at this event as
Yep,
well.
Danny. And so she took a bunch of the pictures.
Right. And you guys
And
haven't met her yet. I think her
she'll-
podcast drops this week or
on
next.
Thursday. Yep. So Alyssa Carpenter is Alyssa behind the scenes, and she helped get all the graphics and the forms and the posters done for me.
Right.
And then Jenny Bailey Saladin,
Yes.
she did a whole bunch of organization for me too. And she's coming back over on Saturday to take all of the pretty vendor things that I had.
Make it all disappear.
Make it disappear into
She's like
pretty
our
little boxes.
Marie. What's the is
Yeah,
it condo?
condo. Mhm.
Yeah, she's like our little organizer. Make things go away. Put them where they belong. Get rid of what you don't need, lady.
Yeah. But I just, in 2 days, to have that many people that we got to know through the podcast, just really touched my heart. I just wanted to share about that. I didn't know that I would want to connect on a deeper level with every guest that we've had on here.
It's
But it
been
feels
great.
like that's what's
I
happened.
mean, it really has been. And it's just a little bit of outreach.
Yeah.
And it's overlapping circles. It's exactly what we were shooting for.
Yeah.
And it's what makes the world go round.
Yeah, it's been super fun. So we also I wanted to follow up a little bit about our metabolic restoration episode because I've gotten some really great feedback about that.
Okay.
Very helpful for people, eye-opening, insightful. And I talked to somebody yesterday, somebody that you knew until coffee, Amy H. She is a listener of the podcast,
Right.
and we were chatting yesterday. And she mentioned about as we were talking about metabolic health, she was talking about all the brain fog that she's been experiencing. And she's frustrated because none of her healthcare providers
Right.
are addressing it. Like when she talks about it, it's just kind of like, oh, well,
And there's
that's what happens when you get old.
Reasons. First of all, Amy, I've known since junior high, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so still lives in our hometown. Excuse me. But it's again another example of you never know how far reaching something that you're putting out is going to go.
Right.
And how it's going to affect the lives of millions of people that you may or may not
Right.
ever meet.
Exactly.
And so part of the reason, if you're thinking about doing a broadcast situation,
Yeah.
is exactly that.
Yeah.
And you may think to yourself, because we don't look, I could not tell you how many views, I could not tell you how many likes, I could not tell you how many subscribes, and we don't really care about that.
Yeah.
The goal is to serve and to put it out and to help people connect.
Because
but
even
Amy,
if
I've
it's just
known,
one person.
right?
Yeah.
Amy, I've known Amy a long, long time, since childhood. And but for her to be able to catch on, reach out, and then you and she have a conversation about her metabolic situation, and
Yeah.
she's not alone. There are
no.
lots and lots of people.
96% of the U.S. population are metabolically
Right.
dysfunctional. Mhm.
And part of that has to do with some changes that took place 3 or 4 years ago. And I don't know Amy's status on some of those things, but
Nope.
the reality is that metabolism has been compromised now for decades. It's connected, and one of the other outreach things that we had to do with the food industry, and we'll cover that a little bit as well.
Yeah, but as far as from her perspective, the thing that she didn't understand was why nobody's talking about brain health and where that fits. Like your doctor isn't going to talk about how to prevent brain challenges later on, like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementia.
So one of the things that's important to remember, whether it's traditional healthcare and medical community people, or whether it is anybody Joe Blow on the street, people don't like to talk about things that they don't know about.
For sure.
Right?
Yes.
Nobody like if you were in a social gathering and you said, "Okay, who wants to play Bible trivia?" Right? Like you're not probably going to get a lot of hands because even though people love the scriptures and love they can't give you necessarily chapter, line, and verse.
Exactly.
So people don't, and healthcare providers are no different. If people come to me with a challenge that I don't know about, I'm going to either help them find the answers that I don't know about,
Right.
or work to connect them with somebody who's going to give them a better answer than me.
Yeah.
Now, again, in traditional healthcare, not everybody's playing the same way. But brain function, when people come to me, everybody has this old preconceived idea of what is chiropractic.
Yes, it's all about the bones.
Right. And so for me, or the back, or the migraines.
Yeah.
There's chiropractic. Everybody knows chiropractic is good for a few things, back pain, headaches, and neck pain, and some of the things. But I wish everybody knew about the connection between the spine and the brain.
Right.
The key to this, when people come here with a back problem, or what you'll perceive to be a back problem, my job is connecting the dots and say, ultimately, I would say the overwhelming majority of the things that we see are, in fact, a brain or nerve system problem. The spine houses the brain and the nerve system. And so when the spine is injured and the bones shift out of their normal place, they have the capacity to interfere with signals that are relaying to and from the brain. The brain function is what separates live people from dead people.
Right.
So if there's an interference for any reason, it might be chemistry, it might be structure, it might be emotion. There are things that interfere or overload the nerve system, and the spine is just the weakest link. So boom, the breakers blow. Think of the spine kind of like your breaker box. In our practice, we focus on the upper cervical spine, actually specifically the relationship of the head to the neck. There's a big hole in the bottom of your head, and it needs to line up with the big hole in the top of your neck.
Kind of like the ring light in the camera.
Yes, when those holes don't line up, it changes two things. It changes the dynamics of fluid flow in and around the brain, which is a great reason for brain fog.
For sure.
Because now fluid is backing up in the skull or being restricted in its ability to escape.
And can also create sinus I mean, when it's,
sinus
they're
stuff,
so, yeah.
vision stuff, hearing stuff, tinnitus, ringing in the ears, all those things can be affected by two things. Again, fluid dynamics in and out of the skull and the neurological signals that go to and from the brain through the stem of the brain.
Tell me again the pressure, how much pressure?
The weight of a dime.
The weight of a dime,
I
that's
think
it.
it's like 15 millimeters of mercury or something like that if you're looking at the science. But the reality is it doesn't have to hurt to be compromised. The stem of the brain doesn't even have pain fibers in it. So you could grab the stem of your brain with a pair of vice grips and choke out the signals and not have any discomfort.
Yeah.
But you'd have a ton of dysfunction.
Yeah.
So you're changing electrical signals and you're changing fluid dynamics, both of which are an excellent reason to say, hey, my brain's not feeling right, my mind isn't working right, my cognitive skills aren't good, my vision, my hearing, my taste, my sense, my smell. Those are all things that can be impacted by misalignment or injury to the upper part of the neck. And so that's what we focus on in our practice. But if I'm a traditional medical person, I can't fix that. That's not my department. That's not my job. I might be able to recommend some chemicals for you that would change the way you think or change the way you feel or change the way information is transmitted. But I can't, that my training and my outcomes are not based on structural correction of the spine. So that's two different camps. And there's room for everybody. It's important to understand.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
it's going to be a team. Your wellness team, right?
If this is not a problem that I'm going to handle, my job is to stay in touch with the person who's helping you in other directions.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
But when you hear of people like Amy, then what you know is her needs aren't being met where she's at, and it's time to go somewhere else. Or your healthcare provider should be connecting you to somebody who says, hey, let me take a look at the structures and their relationship to the function. But it's always about brain. Brain moves muscle. If muscles are tighter on one side, it's because the brain's overloading signal.
Well, I think that's just kind of the point that I was thinking about, was that people don't understand that that we don't hear about how we can protect our brain, feed our brain well, and a chiropractor is somebody that can help with brain function.
Without question. The relay of information has to be clean and clear. The other thing that's significant is nutrients to and from the brain.
For sure.
Right? So there are specific things that the brain has to have in order to function. One of my people today, and I won't mention her name, but one of our people went to the hospital today because she was found this morning unresponsive in her bed.
No.
And her husband couldn't get a pulse.
Oh my gosh, is she okay?
She's still in the hospital. So they transported her this morning. But, and so by text, I'm getting numbers. Her heart rate is this, her pulse rate is this, her blood oxygen is this. And so what's amazing is when blood pressure drops to say 80/40.
Yeah, that's very low.
That says the brain's job is to say, hey, I need more oxygen than I'm getting. And so if the pulse rate is elevated, in other words, the heart has to beat more to get the same amount of blood volume to the brain to keep the brain alive, because when the brain suffers, the whole body suffers. But the reality is that the intelligence inside of that thing is always working to offset the beating. So they got her transported, they have her stable. Her numbers are still bouncing around a wee bit. But the reality is the body will always stop, drop, and roll to meet the demands of the brain. So if the heart's misbehaving, the brain says, hey, I got to change the signals here, sorry. And then in traditional medicine, they're going to work to change those numbers. So your medicine is always going to be designed to either speed up a reaction in the system or slow down a reaction. If your heart's beating too fast, they give you something to slow it down. The question, though, would be, why is your heart beating too fast? Why would a body that's super intelligent by design, why is it happening? Well, it's because the pressure was so low, right? If the pressure drops, the heart rate has to go up.
So her blood pressure went low.
Oh, it plummeted. He couldn't get a pulse. Her husband couldn't get a pulse. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's probably not a very good pulse finder.
Well,
because she obviously had a pulse because they got her to the hospital and she's still alive.
Still alive, right?
So when you're getting panicked information through your cellular device on a text message, you got to sometimes you just got to talk people off the ledge.
So if you're dealing with brain fog or some other issues of the brain, you can reach out to us and we might be able to help with
either connect you with somebody in your community who can do that
a referral,
for you, or we can
with somebody that we know, or just anything like that.
Find a way to make some measurements for you
because it can make
says,
a huge difference.
Hey, what do we got to do here?
I mean, the brain rules the body.
Separates us from dead people.
Okay, we got another request.
Go.
And this is from Adam. And he said, if food is medicine, what is the food in our country doing to our health?
Well, We kind of touched on this a few episodes back because we were brushing up on the statistics from our original book from 16, 18, something like that. And when you look at the statistics, our health is going down the commode. We're fatter, we're sicker, we're slower. We're taking more drugs than any other country in the world. We're spending way more money, twice as much as our closest competitor in the global marketplace for health and health management, actually disease and disease management.
Yeah.
Hospitals are booming. Beds are full. So when you look at the food supply and its impact on our overall well-being, it is devastating. And we talked about this again.
I think it was just the last episode because we were talking about metabolic health, where it is the types of foods in our country, the ultra-processed foods, as those came on the scene.
Yes.
And then disease, I mean, they've kind of tracked right
as
together.
Convenience and flavor have become the focus of the food industry.
But then also not just that part of it, just what they do to our crops and the contamination with glyphosate and all the herbicides and other pesticides that they use. You know, it's not the same food as it was pre-1950.
No, we're eating very different food than our grandparents ate.
And so it is,
in
we've
fact,
done it
I
to
would say
ourselves.
75 or 80% of the food you see in a grocery store didn't exist when our grandparents were eating it.
Yep. So the
Packaged
food,
and
how would you wrap that up? The food in our country, what's that doing to our health?
Sabotaging.
Sabotaging. That's the word I was going to use too.
Yeah, sabotaging.
Yeah.
And even
there
to find
could be-
clean food anymore is a task.
So big food,
Big pharma, big food, same thing.
right?
Big ag, I think is what they call it.
They call it big ag, but isn't it the tobacco industry that purchased a lot of the big food companies, and that's driving a lot of that?
So when things revolve around profit, and again, not to go too far off.
No, we're not, because we've got a couple more pages.
But when the people who are, I'm always intrigued by the fact that we have an FDA. Like the people who are managing your food are also managing your drugs. And
Food and Drug Administration.
Right, when you look at the way investment strategies work and money flows and some of that, it is very lucrative to keep people sick.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, you know, as far as the Food and Drug Administration also regulates a lot of the chemicals in beauty products too.
Or doesn't.
Right. Like there's only 30 ingredients, harmful chemicals that are banned in our country compared to the European Union. That's like 1,500 that are banned.
And if you look at, and I saw this recently somewhere in social media, not that everything in social media is real, but if you looked at the ingredient list at a cereal box.
Oh my gosh, go to the
cereal,
Food Babe.
Right,
Yep.
from cereal in a European country versus same cereal in America, the ingredient list is vastly different because those countries don't allow that chemistry into their food supply.
Food coloring.
Right, coloring and preservatives and so forth.
I know.
So
Yeah.
you can
Thank you
draw
for the
some-
question, Adam. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
That was a good one. And
conclusions are
also
painful.
from Martha H.
My girl Martha.
His girl Martha. She said, "What's the best wine to drink?"
Well, the best wine to drink is usually the one in front of you.
I knew you were going to say something like that.
Well, because there's a lot of controversy. Wine is, I would lump wine into the food category in this
For
regard.
sure. And it's also the most contaminated, across the board, the most contaminated crop in the world, globally. It is. That and coffee.
I was going to say, I would argue that coffee might be actually the two of my favorite things. Coffee and wine can fall into the most contaminated
But
category.
there is a wine company, like a wine subscription, and it's called Dry Farm Wines, and they support small growers that do biodynamic farming, similar to the one that we went to in Willamette Valley. That was so cool.
Yep.
It's elevated. It's one step above organic farming. Biodynamic is one, it's a step up.
They're working hard to grow clean crops and make good food or good wine in that case.
Yeah.
So your organic farmers are going to be different than traditional farmers. And not that these are bad people. They're just making different choices with the way they grow their crops.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to, if they
grapes are no
don't know
different.
a different way to make sure that they can harvest their crops. Like obviously they're going to want to control pests and they're going to want to get the best yield for their crops. I understand that completely.
Right.
But there are these
And I love
biodynamic farms.
I think everybody should have to farm. I think it should be mandatory that when you graduate high school, you get 2 years of farming before you can go do anything else.
So Martha, You can pop on to livingwellbeauty.com and go to the blog section. I have a Ditch and Switch blog post. That's the wine edition. And so that'll help with some of the best wines if you're,
It'll tell you things to avoid, and it'll give you reasons. That's the deal between pesticides and genetically modified things and the way soil's treated and so on. Some wine can be significantly more polluted than others.
Yeah, and it also tells you some of the things that are in there that pollute the wines.
Right.
So you can read that. We don't need
artificial
to go over
color.
that.
They'll put sawdust. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's legal. They're allowed to do it.
It's crazy.
And so again, flavor enhancers and other chemistry that may or may not be beneficial to human health. But in the Ditch and Switch list, Martha, you will find also a list of things that do better.
That to do better. Yeah, the 6 to ditch are Behringer, Sutter Home, Yellowtail, Robert Mondavi, Gallo.
You're going to get us pipe bombed.
Barefoot wine. And then the ones that are like that you can switch to are, you're going to have to say these ones because I can't pronounce any of these.
Monte Bernarde.
And Pacific Rim. I think it's supposed to be
Gingrich Hills.
Yeah.
Yep. Annona Montepulciano di Abruzzo.
Badger Mountain.
And again, some of these are not in the United States; they're elsewhere.
No, but you can get them on the Dry Farm Wine site.
You can get them, but they're grown outside because, again, lots of other countries don't allow some of these things to happen.
Exactly. No, so true. And also, if you click the Dry Farm Wine button that's on there, you can get, if you create a subscription for yourself, you can get an extra bottle for a penny.
The thing that's nice about the dry farm wines, they're going to be lower in alcohol content. They're going to be lower in tannin content. They're going to be lower in sulfite content because of the way they're farmed and produced. So you can enjoy
less headache issues.
Yeah, that fog doesn't show up and the headache from some of the chemistry. Some of the chemistry doesn't come from wine. It comes from the pollution in the wine.
Exactly. 100% I agree.
And so the hangover the next day after a glass or two is not always because of the grape. It's because of the things that have been added to the grape. No different than every other product on the grocery store shelves.
Right.
The more polluted or the more modified or the more...
I think of it as genetically modified.
Well, it is, but I mean, the more we tamper with it and preserve it, the less beneficial it becomes to the people.
Because there are phenols and there's some really good things in wine.
Yes.
You know, very beneficial. That and dark chocolate, those it's okay.
It's not the enemy. You just got to
have
pick
the
and
good
choose.
ones. Yeah. Martha had another question too. She wanted to know, should trucks be allowed in the fast lane?
The answer is yes.
As long as they're going
as long as they're going
right.
fast.
Yes, as long as they don't belong in the right
lane.
lane.
Well, the left lane is the passing lane.
Yeah.
They call it the passing lane because you're not supposed to stay in there.
Whether you're a truck or a car.
Cars, trucks, bikes,
that's,
whatever.
That's a big annoyance.
If you're on the left lane, get out of the way when you know somebody's behind you. It's fairly simple. But thanks for asking.
We appreciate it, Martha. Thank you for chiming in.
I'm that person who's not very patient, right? If I'm in the left lane, it's because I'm wanting to get out of the way.
No.
Like, get out of the way. And so when you're lollygagging in the left lane and...
He's going to flash lights and...
No, I'm not that guy.
You won't beep.
No. I won't be an idiot about it. But I will be unhappy about it.
Quietly unhappy.
Like, get out of the way. You're in the wrong lane. It's a law. Like, play by the rules, people.
I do agree with the play by the rules thing. Okay.
What else?
So you already touched on the fact that there's a presidential debate tonight.
Okay.
I will be tuning in. I don't know if you will be or not. It's going to be past your bedtime.
It's going to be just past my sanity time.
But I follow an account on Instagram called Town Hall or Nowhere. And I've been following them for a long time. It's actually a restaurant in Columbus, in the Short North area in Columbus. They also have a second location in Cleveland.
Oh.
And they do organic wines, organic coffee, organic foods. And I've never been there. So if anybody has been there, I would love to hear your review of it. And I mean, I'm excited to go. I think it would be super fun next time we're in that area.
Yeah,
I think it would be great to pop in.
It seems weird that you have to ask for organic food.
I
know.
Just
listening to you rattle that off. Organic food, organic wine, organic cocktails. It's like, why would we have to have, like, if the grocery store has a healthy food section, what does that make everything else? Like 90% of the store.
Exactly.
It blows my mind. All right.
So where I was going with this
rant.
they have some of the best posts on their Instagram account. I love it. I look forward to their posts every day. And they had talking about the presidential debate, and then they have 13 things that are not up for debate in their opinion. And so I just wanted to see
Not debatable?
if you agree or disagree with what they say.
Oh, well then shoot. How many?
13.
Oh, start,
We can whip
fire
through
away.
them. Okay.
All right, yeah, we're running out of time.
Deep down, we all love Bridgerton.
False.
True. A hot dog is not a sandwich.
I will admit I have eaten a hot dog on flatbread. If you cut it, and you know what I mean?
Okay.
I would call a hot dog a sandwich.
And I would say I agree that it's not a sandwich.
Well, so far we're 2 for 2.
Sugar is more addictive than cocaine.
Never had cocaine, can't tell you. But I would agree, it's pretty addictive.
Sugar, yeah, it's supposedly it's more addictive.
Well,
than
it's in
cocaine.
everything. Cocaine is not in everything, so it's fairly easy to say that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Christian Bale was the best Batman.
I don't even know who that is.
Okay, Graham gave it a thumbs up. He agrees.
Okay.
I don't know who it is either,
don't know
so
who
that's
that
fine. Number 5 is family over everything.
100% true.
God first, family next. Yep.
Family on the planet, yes.
Yep. Crunchy over smooth peanut butter.
No, smooth.
Smooth is better. Yeah.
Although I'm not afraid of crunchy.
Oh,
but
it's
I'm
so
gonna
crunchy.
if I'm picking smooth.
And then Town Hall does sushi very well. Since we've never had it, we can't really attest to that, but neither one of us likes sushi.
I'm not a sushi person. Yeah.
So we wouldn't know
That
anyways.
goes into the deep down we all hate sushi category.
It's not up for debate.
Yeah.
The 90s had the best SNL cast.
False.
Who do you think did?
Well, the 90s had some great SNL people. In fact, the 90s was about the last time SNL was actually funny. Because that was David Spade and Chris Farley. Oh, shoot. Who else was in there? Those were 90s guys. But the 80s were great SNL days. You know, when you look back to Gilda Radner and Dan Aykroyd.
Wouldn't you say like 88 to 92 or 3? So it kind of overlaps.
I don't remember what I had for dinner last night, let alone what was happening in 88 to 93.
We did love Saturday Night Live.
Back in the day.
That's
like
when
I
we
said,
stayed up until
they
midnight.
lost me years and years ago when they started thinking they were funnier than they actually were.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But yeah, the 90s were good,
Okay.
but I'm not
So
sure they're
can
better
we-
than the 80s.
All right. Well, okay.
Debatable.
Tom Cruise is the new Chuck Norris.
Oh. I'm sure there are people who would say that's true. I just wish, I don't know. I still love Chuck.
Are you just neutral?
No, I love Chuck Norris.
Okay. So you disagree.
Yeah, I kind of do.
Food is medicine.
Yes.
Organic food is medicine.
Food is medicine. Yeah.
Yes. Nobody wants to watch you get ready with me.
What?
Oh no. Okay. So that's,
What?
hang on. That sounded really weird.
It did.
So there's a thing for especially beauty influencers where it's like, get ready with me. So I'm putting on my makeup and I'm chatting with you live.
Yeah.
And so what they said is nobody wants to get ready with you.
That's 100% true.
Okay. They said coffee is the most contaminated crop on the planet.
I would probably agree. And that's why we look for organic coffee as well.
Exactly. Yeah. We only drink organic coffee too.
Well, we don't only, but we prefer. Like if you're in a restaurant, you don't know if you're getting organic
Oh,
coffee.
that's true. Yeah. You're
Or
right.
a truck stop. I
Yeah.
love truck stop coffee every now and again just to make your hair stand up. But I doubt that it's organic.
Yeah. I don't.
You know what I mean?
So yeah.
So no, there's a lot of pollution that goes into the coffee production process.
Yeah. And number 13, Michigan still SUCKS.
Also true. Sucks. You're allowed to say that. Well, this is on the Patreon version. Right? Yeah, Michigan. It still
Okay,
sucks.
so you agreed with that. I don't think you had very many that you agreed with them, babe. Let's see. Food is medicine.
That's because they're not right a lot.
3, 4. You guys, I still love your posts. Town hall. Yeah.
Well, it's
They're
just see, I would debate that these are debatable. They say not debatable,
Okay.
and I would debate that they are.
Yeah.
Which is not good or bad. It doesn't make them bad people. They're just not right.
Okay, so you out of 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you felt that 7 of them were not debatable and the rest of them were.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
not bad.
nearly
Half and half.
50-50. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything
Right.
else you want to chat about?
Nope.
Okay.
I think we
Yeah.
knocked that right out of the park.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Love you, babe.
I love you back.
Okay.
Tune in.
Bye.
Hit subscribe,
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
all the
Not
things.
buy yet. Not
Yeah.
buy yet. What are you going to do? Subscribe, like, and follow, right?
Yes. And if you have other things, topics of discussion,
That's right. Yeah.
fire
for these,
away.
Yeah. For these
right?
solo episodes, we'd love to hear if you have other questions.
So
or
yeah, when
topics.
we've got a guest and then somebody we want to introduce to you, that's different. When we don't have that person, bring us a list. We'll talk about whatever you want.
Yeah. That's
within
awesome.
reason. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.